Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome once again your hosts, Bob Repass and Eddie Speed.
All right, that's what I like to hear. All right, so I gave you guys a little flavor before lunch on comfort food. Everybody awake? How was the comfort food? Yeah? I mean, come on, Kobe, beef, meatloaf, where else are you going to get that, right? Right? All right, so for those of you that weren't with us yesterday, Note School had its annual appreciation day, and as part of that, we have a case study competition. And we had a performing loan winner and a non-performing loan winner. And in addition to the prizes and recognition they received yesterday, one of the bonuses is they get to come in front of the large group, and Eddie's going to kind of walk through their case study with you guys so you can kind of see what one of your peers has done in the business. So if I could get the finalists who won yesterday to come up here, I've got Tim Siebelink, Ellen Katz, and Dwayne McCartney. If you guys can make your way up here and have a seat, then Eddie's going to take it from here and kind of show you guys out there what our folks at Note School had done in the past year that was worthy of recognition as the non-performing winner, Dwayne, and the performing team of Ellen and Tim.
Stick Mike.
Oh, we're not going to let them talk, Eddie.
We're going to do all the talking. Oh, there you go. You got stick mics. You're perfect. All right, so what we've done every year for the last several years is we have students that are in our high-end program, and they just submit a case study competition. We typically get about 20 applicants on both sides. And we sort through them, and we have kind of a selection process, and we get down to the top three. Internally, Note School gets down to the top three. And then when we get to the top three, we have an event that was all day yesterday, and all of our high-end members then vote on the winner. So each of the finalists come up and present, and we have a voting process, and the audience decides, and you're looking at the winners. And some of these were really close votes because we had some really good competitions. And that one thing that really always amazes me is how we've been able to translate stuff that Note School has been trying to teach, and see how creatively these students then run with it and do that. And I think you'll get a good, clear idea of that today. So we feel like we give them a solid base of knowledge, and the more that we start working in this business, we start being creative. I always have a saying, and I really believe this is the truth. We get paid the most when we're creative. We get paid the most when we're creative. Okay, so let me see. Who are we going with first? We're going with performing?
Performing, yes.
Is that right? So Tim and Ellen, you guys please stand up. In fact, I'll borrow the mic from you. And so a little bit of history. I've known these guys really well. Tim has been involved in Note School for many years. He's done virtually everything you can do. Ellen, you've been in there not as long, but you got baptism by fire, didn't you? And you've done a good many assets at this point, and you guys have kind of teamed up together, and kind of your model that you're currently implementing is you're buying property and using a seller finance strategy to exit the property. So you're manufacturing your own inventory, so to speak. Fair statement? Right. Okay, so I'm going to do the clicking. I'll let you guys do the talking, okay? How about that? All right, so this is Ellen and Tim.
So we purchased this property at auction in a small town in southeast Ohio. Purchased it on the auction steps. It was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. The cost was $43,290 when we bought it. Rehab was a little over $26,000.
So you really rehabbed it well. It was pretty slick.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we wanted to do a quality job, so this
Sure.
really needed work. It needed new interiors.
All new roof. Yeah, when we do rehabs, I call it, we just don't do lipstick on a pig. We go in and be all new plumbing, especially in the up north where we know it's going to freeze. So it's all new plumbing, new water heater, new furnaces. This one had a new roof on it. We do go through them extensively.
Yeah. So here's an interesting story. So they both are independent. They both been independent with Note School and independent investors for years, right? And Tim, you've probably been with us 6 years.
I think it's 7
Actually,
now.
interesting, I said this yesterday. Tim is actually my oldest Note School student, I think. He originally came to a class in 2004. And then you plugged back in with us and got involved down the road. And Ellen, you've been, is it 3 years now?
2.5.
2, yeah. So Ellen came from corporate America. She had no real background in real estate whatsoever. Her dad's a very sophisticated investor, and her dad kind of teamed up, but you've really gotten to do a lot of the work, right?
Yes.
And but you guys then kind of paired up and started doing this stuff together. You both liked the model, and you both were a good fit. You had different strengths you could add. Okay, so then you had 64,000 in it, right?
69.
69, I'm sorry, it does say 69. All right, so then you resold it.
Correct. We resold it with seller financing. We sold it for $120,000 with $30,000 down. And then we created a note for 90, 360 months at 7%.
Is that a good deal? Everybody like that deal? Could everybody live with that? Well, I know that clap sounds like clapping at a golf tournament, but it'll get better. Another former Mississippian named Mary Ann Mobley became a Miss America winner, and she invented a saying that we've all heard, and she says, "You ain't seen nothing yet." Little bit of history there. All right, so you sold this house, and you're collecting a note, gross payments over time, okay? But you sold it because of what?
So the buyer that bought the first property wanted, at the same time, sold us the house that she was currently living in. She'd only been living in it for 60 months. She sold it to us for a total of $39,000. She put $30,000 down, sort of, that we used as a down payment for the first house. And then we added an additional $9,000 in cash to come up with $39,000.
So most of the property was her down payment, and you actually papered it in a way that you paid cash and she paid cash back to you.
Exactly.
Correct. That's the way the title company attorneys wanted to write it, so it showed as a true sale that we paid $39,000 for hers, and then we just did a double close. 30 of the 39 that we sent to the title company just went right back to us when we closed on the first house.
Okay. So then you took house number 2 and take a wild guess what they did with it. Huh? What do we all figure they did with it, right? So you resold house number 2
For $7,225, with just a little bit of cash down. It was a 5%. So the total amount financed was $68,875. That's 7% for 30 years. And the way we backed into the monthly payments, we knew what the monthly payment had to be, and we backed into them what the terms of the loan would be based on what the borrower could afford when we added the P&I taxes and insurance.
So one point you guys made yesterday is both this buyer here already was pre-qualified for an FHA loan, but they had gotten divorced, and so there was already an FHA loan out there with their name on it, and they couldn't get a new one.
Correct.
This one's likely to pay off early with a refi.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you wanted to hold the price up as high as you can and lower the interest rate versus lower the principal amount and increase the interest, right? Because they were stuck at a payment that they had to be at.
Exactly.
Does that make sense to everybody? In other words, if you had a choice, would you finance more money at a lower rate, or would you finance lower money at a higher rate? The answer is choice number 1, pretty much always, right?
Right. So the nice thing with this particular property, we didn't have to do anything to it. It needed some cosmetic work to it, had beautiful woodwork in it. It was a really nice house. It was just cosmetically, it was beat up. So, and these particular buyers, they were already pre-qualified for $75,000, except he already had one FHA loan on him from his previous divorce. That should be wiped out within a year is what they're figuring. Then they will seller finance. So they were very excited just to get in the house because they wanted to buy, but he couldn't buy because of that FHA loan on him.
Okay. So what I thought would be good is let's just kind of combine some numbers and see where you stand. Okay. Now I've made an assumption here for everybody. we multiplied the payments out in the future. And I know that may seem unsophisticated, but clearly it gives us kind of a basis of understanding what the potential is in this deal. If they pay off early, you won't collect quite as much, but you get your money quicker, right? Exactly. So if we did a combination here on both sides, house number one, they got 69 in it. They sold it for $120, 30 down, $215 total payments, $215,600. House two, $39,000 cost in it, $72,500, not as big a down payment. Once again, you had a lot of documentation on the buyer, right?
Right. They provided us all of copies from the lawyers, copies of the approval.
This is
on the
definitely not a
loan.
Jesse James buyer, right? This is a very vettable, high credit buyer.
Yes.
Exactly. We ran credit reports on both buyers before we approved them.
Yeah. Okay, so gross payments over time on that deal would be $164,000. Now, we understand if it paid off early, you wouldn't get that, but that's just the easiest way to kind of calculate it. So then we thought it would be cool. Let's just run a combo. Let's just see what the combo of the two was. Total cost is $111,174, and then your gross sale was $192. Gross down payment, the combined two, was $33,625. And then long-term payments is, am I reading that right?
Be nice to do one of these a month, wouldn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I could go through with that woman.
What if
again
somebody
one
told,
month.
what if somebody told you could do a $100,000 acquisition, get a third of your money back up front, and the remaining 2/3 of your investment, which would basically be $70,000, you could turn into $380,000. Would that be good enough? What do y'all think? Hey, now you see why they're the winner. In fact, they won a nice award.
Oh, look at here.
How about that? Ellen, you want to hold that? We're going to put that mic down so we don't drop that thing. This is what kind of crystal is it?
Pure.
All right, thank you. Congratulations, by the way. Okay, so equally on the non-performing side, Dwayne McCartney made a submission. Dwayne, come up here and talk about this deal.
Okay. This is a property down in Memphis, Tennessee. I actually looked up my records and I did buy it off Colonial.
Okay.
So this was, I think I purchased this in 2016, and it was a non-performing when I purchased this.
So basically, obviously, we can see it's a pretty good looking house.
Yes.
Analytics in the neighborhood. It's not in a super high crime neighborhood.
Correct.
It was a defaulted loan, and loan balance at the time you bought it was $59,400, right?
$59,400 at 8.6, and had 228 more months, $530 a month. And again,
Seriously delinquent.
Yeah, she was pretty delinquent, and I looked at it that for the investment amount that I had to pay for it, I could always foreclose on it if I had to, and get my money back plus some.
Okay. So you bought this loan at a pretty good discount, 32 cents on the dollar, right?
Yeah. How did I get it so cheap, Eddie?
I was asking my staff the same question.
So yeah, I paid $19,095.
Yeah.
That's with expenses. I had to start foreclosure, so I had some legal fees, that type of stuff. So I think I paid like $17, $18 for it, and added on some fees.
And I can pretty much tell you that the reason that note is priced at $19,000 is because of the BPO.
Yeah.
In other words, if you go back and look, I just intuitively know that when we go back and look at that, the BPO would have come in lower than the loan balance.
I want to say $35,000.
$35,000 on the BPO? Yeah. So at the time, you seemed like you were like overpaying almost.
Well,
Common sense overwhelmed you?
Well, what happened was you guys had an old BPO on the site, and that house was painted just a dull gray. It wasn't anything great looking. I found a newer picture on it because they had done a BPO maybe a year before I had looked at it, and they had fixed it up and repainted it and stuff, and it looked a lot better. And I figured, well, there's a lot of emotional equity there too. So they definitely want to stay, or they wouldn't have put the money on the outside.
Got
So,
it.
you know, it seemed like a good buy.
All right, so you had a non-performing note. You really had two choices at that point, right?
Yeah, the lady borrower, she got her hours cut at work. So she's in home health care, whatever, and from 40 hours down to like 10 hours a week or something like that. So obviously she couldn't make it. We did loan mod, gave her a couple months through that. She still couldn't find any other employment. We did end up starting the foreclosure, and during the 30-day demand cycle, she found a full-time job in the business and kept her part-time job. So now she had the income to continue making payments. So we let the modification stand, and she started making payments on that.
Okay. So she found another job, right?
Yes.
And even kept her part-time job.
Yes, yeah.
She,
Trying to get
she
caught
had
up.
what we would refer to as emotional equity, right?
Very much so, yeah.
Yeah. She wanted to keep the house. So you modified the loan.
Yeah, we cut the interest rate down to like 7%, and
All right, so let's look at the terms of it. So after the modification, you financed $60,255, right?
yeah, added on the legal fees and stuff, and cut their interest to 7%.
7%.
And-
You extended the term and made her payment affordable.
I made her payment, again, as they said, to head back into what she could afford a month. I had a return in mind myself, so I had to extend it 395 months to get my return, but we kept the payments in line with what she could afford.
Okay. All right, so it went from a non-performing to, after the modification, a re-performing, right?
Yes.
So then, if you looked at a timeline in those payments and the cash flow, you had $19,095 invested, and you owned the cash flow for 395 months. And then
Correct.
you collected 4 payments.
I collected 4 payments, got her, made sure that I wasn't going to sell a pig in a poke for a partial buyer, so I kept it for 4 months.
So then at that point, to sell the whole note, you'd probably had to sell it at a big discount, right?
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
So instead of selling the whole note, you just carved off and sold 128 months.
Yeah, I met an investor at an IRA meeting, and just kind of telling him the story. I really wasn't pitching the product, and he was just looking for something to move his passive money out of his IRA account. So we got together, and I sold him 128 months.
Okay? And you wrote a check. He wrote you a check for $32,150.
That's correct.
So he sold a payment stream of 10 years and 8 months for just a tick under a 9 yield.
Yes.
All right? And then you own the back 263 payments.
Oh, that's correct.
That's going to be mailbox money one day, right?
One day, I hope I'm alive.
One way or another, either
hope I'm
pays
alive
off,
to collect it.
either pays off early, or you just get the money back. It'll probably pay off early. Yep. So at this point, you are 16 payments in as of today. 4 to you, 12 to your partial investor.
Yeah.
How's she doing?
She's doing good. She just recently had let her insurance lapse, so I got on her about that, and she went ahead and got insurance and stuff, and so I'm keeping up on she still owes some back taxes, so we're working on those too. But my partial investor doesn't know anything about that because that's one thing you don't want to do with a partial investor. Say, hey, you better call this borrower. She doesn't have insurance and she's back on her, backlogged her taxes. That's the type of stuff I want to take care of for the partial investor. So it's a no hassle, no problem investment for them, and they'll spread the good word and hopefully come back for more. So I'm taking care of that back end stuff.
Okay. So if I looked at 2 graphs, the orange being your note receivable,
Yep.
right, and the blue being the partial sale, that would kind of show me how the partial laid over the top of the whole loan. And
Right.
that basically that's just the principal owed on both sides.
Right.
For the life of the loan, it doesn't include interest, right? So that just shows you essentially how it works. And that's important as a visual aid, that's important in case the loan pays off early. Because if you're yellow, if that most of that page is yellow and it pays off early, you're good, right?
The bigger the spread between the blue and the yellow, the richer you become.
Exactly. All right, so just to kind of go through the math, you bought the note for $14,095. Sold a partial for 32. Your profit up front on that, right? Was 14,563. Residual income, well, who knows, right?
Still walk away with money even if it quit today.
100 grand future money, or if it pays off early, you're still going to be good. So you got a little bitty deal that turned into a lot of money.
Yes.
Okay. Big money and little deals. Is that what they say?
Yeah. So when you think of only investing $20,000 in a note, you probably aren't thinking, well, geez, I can make 100 grand. But you run the numbers, and if it makes sense,
I was at lunch today, and I was sitting around some note school people, some not note school people, and I said, if you're going to buy non-performing notes today, and you don't understand anything about seller financing, and you don't understand anything about partials, you agree with that, Tim? You're probably going to struggle to make it today. The cost of these assets require you to be a better, smarter operator than you would have had to been years ago.
Yeah, especially as the prices keep going up on these.
So these strategies is, the students picked this winner. We didn't pick them, but these strategies are definitely something that we believe strongly is a market condition. And I always like to just look at what if, right? What if it paid off early? And you can see, if you just look on in 5 years from now, that loan pays off. Probably in 5 years, you're going to owe them about 18 grand.
Right.
The partial investor.
Partial.
And in about 5 years, you're probably going to be owed about 58 grand.
Right.
Is that close to it?
Yep.
How much is that, Bob? That's a lot, isn't it?
That's enough.
That's enough.
That's enough.
All right, that's kind of our internal joke. All the engineers want to know what the yield is. I say it's enough. You're good. Y'all give me a hand.
All right. There you go.
Great. Thank you,
All right,
guys.
let's give all these guys a hand.
Congratulations.
Thanks, guys.